What's up, Yellowjackets fans? Pete here from the Lassercast, and thank you so much for joining us on this channel. Episode 3 of Yellowjackets Season 2 just dropped, and here I am to talk with my friend Danny, who's actually in Arizona today, but he's
I
up
am.
nice and early to talk about our new favorite show. Danny, how you doing?
I'm a little tired, but I'm good. Getting ready. When everybody wakes up, we're gonna head to Tombstone, which is a very long drive from where we are. It's about a
Oh,
3-hour drive, so it's probably gonna be a full day trip. But yeah, it's really nice. The weather's supposed to get crazy hot. Perfect roasting your friend over an open fire weather.
well, we see the fallout of that in the beginning of this episode, right? First off the bat, I noticed a few changes in the editing. The show is a little bit different this time around. When
Yeah.
we had these flashbacks with the coach, there would be that effect that you see in the credits where, like, it looked like an old VHS tape, where it looked like the VHS tape maybe had like a flaw in it, and you'd see like a little bit of blurring. And then besides that, there was one cool shot where we cut from the present day to the past, and it just sort of like faded, almost like a Star Wars shot, versus the way they've normally been doing it, which is kind of like Lost, where they just kind of cut back and forth.
Yeah, this episode, there were a couple of scenes that felt very reminiscent of Lost. The
Hmm.
only thing that was missing was like the sound cue, like the
Yes,
Lost
yes,
sound cue. That if anybody who's ever watched it knows exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever
yes.
there was some kind of a time jump or a flashback, there was always that very specific sound cue that they used. And if you could have edited that into this episode, it felt there's even something. I don't know if you saw the previews for next week, but
I
there's
did.
even something in the previews for next week that resembles or appears to be some type of a climbing down into a hatch thing. And I went, oh
Yep,
no, come on.
yep. I had that exact thought, and I thought of you right when I saw that. Yes.
I know, I know. I'm
Yeah.
like completely paranoid by Lost and what happened to Lost after season one. But again, as far as a 57-minute episode of television, I thought this was very good, very compelling, a pretty good follow up to last week, even though it kind of it didn't. I don't want to say it strayed away from the horror. I think it dealt with it a little bit, and
Yeah.
it also showed some other horror in other ways.
Exactly.
There were a few really creepy scenes in this episode. I was sitting with my AirPods in on the couch. We had done our Passover Seder a day late with all of my aunt, my cousin, a bunch of family out here, and everybody left. So it was like 9 o'clock. I don't even know what time. What am I, Mountain Time now, and or Pacific Coast time, and it was like 9 o'clock out here. So like people were getting tired, getting ready to go lay down, and I'm like sitting with my AirPods in, and like there were a few moments during this episode where I was like, oh, and my sister was like, don't spoil it. I have to go home and watch it. And I was like, okay, okay.
Oh, she watches it too, huh?
She doesn't watch it. But she's excited to get started on it, and she's like
Okay.
been meaning. She's gonna end up doing what I did, which is like a season one binge followed by jumping into season two.
Yeah. Well, she can start watching our show after she gets caught up, and she'll know the format, which is basically that we go and we do one character storyline at a time, and we usually go by the one that we're not the most excited about to the one that we're most excited about. So I don't know about you, but for me, still the Misty storyline is the one that I'm the least excited about. How do you feel?
Yeah, her and Elijah Wood interrogating Randy on a boat, not exactly, on another show, maybe that would be a lot of fun. On this show, it is, the bottom storyline. Uh,
Exactly.
I did like 1996 Misty. They're doing the baby shower for Shauna, and
Right.
her gift is a monologue from Steel Magnolias where the character is mourning the loss of her baby. And I'm like, and all the girls are like, is she really doing that monologue? And they're like, it's Misty. Of course she is. So
Yes.
I thought 1996 Misty was like almost unintentionally hilarious, whereas
Mm-hmm.
2021 Misty, it's I get the point of the storyline. You're introducing a new character with Elijah Wood, and you're trying to find out what happened to Nat at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the lower level storyline for me.
Yeah, and they played that song "Seether" as she was walking to Elijah Woods' boat, and I was excited about that because I remember that song from like 1996, back when they used to play rock on Z100. But
Yeah.
that show always, I mean, the show just in general always reminds me of my high school age. But what I was gonna say was, I'm still unsure like how they got that guy who's Jeff's friend to the boat. Like they convinced him that Elijah Wood was with the FBI.
Yeah, they're both, I guess, master hackers, and they were able to probably they were able to see that she was at the Nat was at the hotel, and obviously they were able to find out he was there. So, that yeah, I like it's just Randy is such like an extraneous character, that I didn't really. He just kind of shows up as like Jeff's friend, and then
Right.
and like nobody cares, Randy. Move on.
Well, then let's start to move on to what we do care about. I think that like Misty, we could kind of tie her in with the coach because she's had a lot of involvement with the coach, and there was a big focus on him this episode. That's where we saw that weird kind of editing effect I was talking about, where it looked like a VHS tape that was kind of frayed. We saw flashbacks, but we also saw that he kind of had like a fantasy about his life, and it was truly sad. It was probably one of two pretty sad things this episode. Essentially, we saw him with his like lover, and this was pre-crash. We see that his lover really wanted him to kind of come out as gay, to stop being a soccer coach and move in with him. And then we found out that he could have made a decision to be with him, but instead he chose the soccer team, and it led him to this fate. What do you think ultimately is happening to the coach by the end of the episode?
I think the coach is probably starting to lose it a little bit based on the fact that he didn't eat.
Yeah.
He did not partake in the Jackie feast. So he's
Right.
probably starving. Like they've made a big point about how the girls hope Jackie is going to get them through the winter.
Yeah.
And how there's been very little to no food. So he's probably, he's obviously wounded physically with the missing a leg, and now he refused to eat. And yeah, I mean, he's probably having like hunger fantasies. I don't know, but I kind of feel like we're on the verge of losing him as a character. I feel like this kind of felt like we don't know a lot about this character. So they gave him a piece of this episode. You've been on the show for a year and a half now. You deserve to have some of your backstory shown. But now that we know you a little bit, now we've given the actor like a nice chunk of television time. Now I feel like he's probably going to be the next one to die in 1996. And I don't know if it's going to be an exciting death. I think it's going to be very similar to Jackie, where they just kind of come in and find that he's like withered away from a lack of food and cold, and the elements kind of take him. That's kind of my, I think that I've watched enough TV to know that like when I also kind of felt that way about the girl that became friends with Misty in this episode. That's another character whose name we don't really know, who's just one of those girls who was on the soccer team. We've only really met 7 or 8 of them by name. And now all of a sudden this like new girl is sharing stories with Misty. Oh my God, the I ate my kid in the womb. I almost burst out laughing in the living room in front of my family. I was fucking dying.
Yes.
when she goes, "This isn't the first time I've eaten human flesh." But I felt like,
this moment had a couple of moments. This episode had a couple of moments that
yeah,
were very, very funny. I'm saving one
yes,
of them for the very end, but no, I know you bring up a really excellent point that like they're starting to focus on these ancillary characters a lot. They focused a lot on other girls. There's one part where the coach comes in and he looks down and there's that one girl who I feel like we've never seen her before, but she's like, I'm still hungry, and she's frothing from the mouth because he's
yeah.
delusional.
I feel like
Good.
that's like something that people who write drama they do is they bring in characters. They want to build the audience sympathy for these characters, and then once the audience starts thinking about them, they kill them. And then there's like an emotional, like all of a sudden we're like, oh man, the coach died. And
Yeah.
really the coach is kind of like you said, he's kind of like one of these ancillary characters. Like, he had in season 1, there's the big thing with his leg getting cut off. There's the big thing with, that like weird flirtation with Misty, which of course is just him covering up the fact that he's gay. And now, once he rejected the meat in the last episode, I kind of feel like, okay, this is his way out of the show. They gave him like an arc in this episode to show what could have been. And now the reality is this is what is. And I think, they might end up with a drumstick next week. Who knows?
Oh my God. Yes. Missing one leg though. Yeah. So, we're talking about all these kind of ancillary characters, and there is this one really great scene too where Thaisa is talking to another girl who I don't know the name of, but it's an African American girl, and they're talking together. And that girl mentions how she has a nephew, I believe, and then the nephew's was 4 months when they left, so he's going to be a bit older now because it's been 7 months. And that was very sad to me too, because I'm like, okay, well, she's not going to make it back, so she's never going to see this nephew again. That was the other sad moment. When we move on, I think that the next thing would be to talk about Nat and Lottie, right? And back in the day when Sherry and I used to discuss this show, there were a couple of people that were like our main people that always brought up great points. And one guy is this guy, Ralph Bednarski, who I guess has followed us onto this channel. And he messaged me on Instagram, and he had a little theory, and it's got my wheels turning. You want to hear the theory?
Absolutely.
Okay, so he's talking about Shauna's baby, which we had the baby shower for this episode. It's a nice, awkward baby shower. And he was saying that Yellowjackets is a very progressive show. What if Shauna's baby is born, right? And it would be like 25 years old. What if it's that girl, Lisa, that got stabbed by Nat in the present day? The one that's in the cult with Lottie. Like, what if it was a boy and transitioned into Lisa?
What
the fuck am I talking about?
No, why would there? I don't understand the last part about the transition. Why would it? Oh,
the only reason why I say anything about transition is because when they have the baby shower, Lottie says he is going to be okay. The baby. She refers to he.
Oh! I must have missed that. Yeah, again, I was watching with my AirPods on my phone, so I might not have picked up on every. Okay, so I didn't realize that. That's interesting. It could be. I'm very interested to see where this whole Lottie cult situation goes. I thought the ending part of the episode was really, really interesting. Like, Lottie has gone from, oh, well, it's obviously Lottie, like being the head of the queen with the antlers, to suddenly, I don't know. And now I kind of feel like maybe she's just lumped in with them as just another victim of this, yes, she has this, power that she can see into the future or see visions, but maybe it's not a positive thing, and it doesn't appear to be a positive thing. And that scene with the bees was very dark.
Yeah.
And so there was also that. I also thought about that story she told about the bees where the queen is born and the queen instantly like attacks the other unborn.
Yes.
So I kind of felt like that was a hidden message that I should remember. And since there's a baby about to be born, maybe that's going to play into things.
Yes.
Like, I have no idea what's going to happen with Shauna's baby. Like, I know you've seen the movie Men. Like, for all I know, Shauna could give birth to a fucking human, live adult man. I don't know.
Oh
Like,
God, I hope not.
no, I know. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I keep playing in my head. Like, every time I see a male character who looks a few years younger than our leads, I'm like, it's Javi.
Right.
And every time,
right.
and like, so I'm trying to play that game. I didn't realize that Lottie said he as far as the baby's gender.
Yeah.
Because I don't think. Oh man.
Don't go down that incest hole. Were you about to go that way? Like,
Well,
like
was
the baby
Adam
is
the
Javi?
baby?
Is
Oh
Javi the
no, I
baby?
was gonna say was Adam the baby?
That's what I meant. That's what I fucking meant.
Yeah.
Adam was Adam.
I don't know.
So here's my thing, right? What I love about talking to you is that you're just like me, and you've given a fucking term to it. You say fantasy booking with your wrestling, where we speculate. And the reason why we are good at speculating or we enjoy it is because we've watched so many movies and TV shows, right? So you even mentioned this before. They introduce this part of the coach's life, so you feel bad for him when he dies, right? Well, I think, okay, what is the purpose of this whole Adam story arc, right? Is it just essentially to highlight that Shauna is kind of ruthless and that it kind of brings her husband in, and then you have the husband-wife dynamic? Like, we'll talk about that when we talk about Shauna, but I still think that there's credence to Adam being Javi because I think that there was a greater point to him being on the show, right?
See,
Not just
I think you hit it on the head. Not that he's Javi, not that he's the baby. I just feel like if they don't really, if it just turns out that he is Adam Martin, an artist who got into a fender bender, ends up having an affair with Shauna, and then dies because of like accidental speculation,
right,
then I do kind of feel like that's retroactively a large section of season one that feels pointless in retrospect.
right.
Unless we go back, and again, that's why we have Misty, that's why we have Elijah Wood's character. You know, they even in this episode, Jeff approaches Kevin at the gym. So like the whole idea of her having that affair and being investigated by the police for the murder, it's keeping it in like the show. It's not just like some season one thing that was there and it's gone now. It's still there. So I have faith that it is going to come back and mean something, not necessarily that Adam is one of these characters. Right. But yeah, I kind of feel like he needs to end up being more than just Adam Martin, rogue artist and fender bender victim who ends up having an affair.
Right.
Like there has to be more to it.
Right. And with this baby, there's the idea that they're going to eat the baby. Everyone's freaked out about it. They've even had dreams where it's like that does happen in a dream, right? But I really like Ralph's theory. And the reason why he added a little more, which I think makes it a lot juicier. He was saying, what if Lottie ended up taking care of the baby and Lottie essentially raised the baby? Like the thing is with this girl, Lisa, the one that I don't think we've mentioned her in these videos. She's the one that Juliette Lewis stabbed with a fork. And you see some marks on her eye, like near her eye, because she would have got her eye if she didn't block it, right? And so there has to be some significance to her. With our fantasy booking that we do, it's like, well, maybe they're setting her up so that maybe Juliette Lewis has to like kill her to escape or something. Or maybe like Lottie has to kill her so Juliette Lewis can escape. There's that kind of storytelling where it's like you're just essentially setting her up so she could be a block, right? To keep them from something, and you got to kill her, right? But I think it's a lot more interesting to be like, Lottie's always had the baby, and maybe she's always actually had leverage over at least Shauna because she has the baby. I like that idea. I don't know if they would go with it. It was a boy transitioning to a girl. That is kind of progressive for a show like this, but I think it's a really good way to misdirect the audience. You're not thinking, oh, well, it's a boy. Maybe it's the baby. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. I'm interested, like everything about I 1996. It's weird. I like 1990
uh-oh.
around.
You're freezing up a little bit. Let's see. I might have to keep talking just to keep it going, but Danny, I don't hear you, but Danny was saying something about 1996. I'm wondering if he was saying that. Oh, he's cutting out again. Wait, Danny, you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for a little bit. You said something about 1996. Why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say the 1996 story hooks me more, but I think the 2021 actors hook me more. Like, I love Melanie Linsky. I love Tony Cypress. Juliette Lewis, of course. So I'm really into both sides of the time story, but for different reasons.
Yes.
And so, like, and again, I always come back in my head to your point when I think we did our recap of season 1, where you said that apparently the creators of this show have a fleshed out 5-year plan. So, okay, I don't have to like freak out that, oh, they're on a complete lost deviation train, and I can just, whenever I have a question, I can just have faith.
Yes. Well, I mean, it is a show that seems like they know where they're going, and there's definitely beats that they want to hit. And I think we covered Lottie and Nat for the most part. I wanted to move on to, I think Shauna's arc for the whole episode is maybe the more interesting one because there's more of it. But the one with Thaisa is the one that still got me the most excited, but I feel like there was very little of it. And what I was going to say to you about the Thaisa thing is I was looking up a review, and it was on, on a website, and the guy basically said that Van was in this episode. You did not see Van, right? Adult Van.
I didn't spot her. Maybe she was lurking in the background.
No. Okay, so here's the thing, right? When Thaisa is looking in the mirror in the last scene of this episode, right? She sees her other, and her other goes like this, and the other mouths something, right? Did you understand what she was telling the other Thaisa?
No.
That's the thing. I had no clue either. Me and Sherry are sitting there like, what the fuck is she saying? What is she doing with her hands? And I went to this website, and they're like,
I thought she was making the symbol. That's what it kind of looked like to me, because the symbol that's on everything, it's like a triangle with a circle, and it kind of looked like that's what she was doing, kind of like this. So okay. I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I took from that.
Okay, so here's the weird thing. On this website, the person said that the other was saying, go to her, meaning go to Van. And then I made the connection of that's like Van's scars, or that's like Van's mask that she had. Mm-hmm. But your point is a really good point too. And that makes me do even more fantasy booking. Because it's like, what if the fact that Van, her mask being like that, maybe is some kind of weird parallel to that symbol? Because like in the past, that symbol is very important. And that symbol comes up a lot in this episode. We see go ahead.
With Thaisa, like the sleepwalking. I like that Van follows her into the woods and talks with the other. I thought that was a really interesting. And they keep bringing up the man with no eyes. I want to know more about that. And then there's also when her wife is in the hospital after the car accident, and she goes, oh, what a nice symbol you drew on her, the doctor. And then she's like, oh yeah, it's a good luck symbol. And then she like runs over and she's trying to scrub it out. The symbol, it's present in a lot of things. And actually one thing
I probably should have brought this up during the Lottie discussion, but Lottie gives Shauna a blanket for the baby, and I think that's when she says he, and then it has that symbol on it, and then Shauna's nose, she starts to bleed, she has a nosebleed, and the blood goes by the symbol, and that's when there's this really fucking weird thing where all these birds fall from the sky too. So that symbol, I feel like that symbol has to have power. Like I'm definitely leaning more towards the show is supernatural versus it's just all coincidence, you know?
I think over the last 2 episodes, they've basically thrown away any pretenses that there isn't some kind of force in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, I know that a word that we've brought up in previous episodes, maybe it was our season 1 recap, was Wendigo.
Yes.
And I always kind of think back to Pet Sematary, where in Pet Sematary, both the book and the movie, the original movie, there's no outward like malevolent monster, right? There's no like giant monster that lives in the woods, but there's this unspoken, unseen presence that guides Lewis and Judd past the Pet Cemetery, up through the path to the Micmac burial ground, and there's like they hear all these like sounds in the woods, and there's this unspoken force, and of course the dead come back to life, and the ground. Part of me, creator of this.
Oh, you cut out again, Danny. Oh no, Arizona! You're making such a good point too. All right. Well, he was talking about Pet Sematary.
Now I'm back.
Okay.
There we go. I
there
think the creators of this show were in some way inspired by Pet Sematary. That's my point. Before our Wi-Fi trickles out again.
The horrors of recording a podcast in your car in a different state.
Yeah, really.
Right? But you make a good point, and I think comparing it to Stephen King, I'm sure that our writers, our creators are aware, and he's an influence on some level. And sometimes this show makes me think of Misery too, with them all kind of just stuck in a cabin in the snow, But we've kind of covered everybody except for Shauna, and no, there is one other point I wanted to make too. I was thinking, Danny, that since you're having like a lot of issues with the Wi-Fi and shit, do you want to just kind of save Maniac Cop for when you come back, and we'll just kind of talk more about Yellowjackets? Is that cool?
I mean, I can try to figure stuff out. I mean, or it's up to you. I'm good either way.
We'll talk about it after we finish this one. But anyway, what I was going to say is that we're talking about kind of visions that we have, and there's that really great sequence where, Thaisa takes Van into the woods, and then there's that symbol on the tree yet again, right? Awesome stuff. And then, there's visions. Lottie has visions like crazy, but Sherry was wondering that giant elk or whatever, that fucking moose, that white moose thing in the woods, was that real, or was young Nat having a vision?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any way for us to know that right now. Because, she was off by herself. She was with, the plane. What's left of the plane is basically a graveyard now. Right. She delivered Jackie's bones to it. So who knows what it stirs up. And, I do think it's weird that, obviously I know Nat was startled, but she's also proven to be a great shot, and she missed, this giant moose right in front of her.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but part of me felt like that could go either way. Like that's like a coin flip over, is that real or not?
Yeah, when she heard noise at first, like before it walked into the shot, I thought that it was going to be that Javi was hiding out in the plane and she was going to find him, but then that wasn't the case. What's the actress's name that plays Nat? I didn't write it down in my notes for today. Do you remember?
Young or old?
Young.
Sophie Thatcher?
Sophie Thatcher. I love Sophie Thatcher. I was so excited when she was on the Book of Boba Fett, but it's kind of a lame show. But I want to get an action figure of Sophie Thatcher because I just think she's awesome. And I kind of forgot about it because they didn't really get to show off her chops this season yet until this scene in the plane where she's there with Jackie's bones. Like Nat has decided to put Jackie's remains with the rest of the people that have died so far. And I think the coach is the one that makes that line of like, well, they'll think that she died in the crash with everyone else. He's worried about what he's going to think when they come back, which I think that's a really great writing note in itself, because it's like he's worried about what people think about him being gay, and that leads ultimately to his death. And here he is once again worrying about what people think after they're cannibals, right? But just going back to Sophie Thatcher, she does this little kind of monologue where she's talking to Jackie's remains, and she says this great line of, "You managed to make people be jealous of you one more time before you died." I love that scene. That was really good. What'd you think?
No, I thought it was great, and I think there is, for these girls, there is like some element of like, why are we here? Why are we alive? Why did we survive? And I think that's what draws some of the people to Lottie, and the idea of, latching onto anything that, acts as a pillar of faith or a reason. And so if Lottie's having visions, maybe she's, a godly figure. Laura Lee, when she decided to, fly the plane, why did everybody think that, this girl, this high school soccer player, was going to fly a plane out and save everybody? Because she's the religious one. So maybe it's like a real sign from God, and obviously something went on that plane we don't know about. But so I do kind of feel like, on the show, that Jackie, they would look at Jackie as somebody who's lucky. Her death wasn't a painful one. She didn't suffer. I mean, obviously, she froze to death, which is not fun, but it wasn't like a painful, burning up in a fire death like some of the characters experienced during the plane crash. So yeah, they probably are pissed off at her one more time, or jealous of her one more time.
Yeah. So I mean, like, great sequence, great chance to see Sophie Thatcher acting one more time like that. I think Jackie's finally gone from the show, and I actually really love that actress that played Jackie and that character. So we then move on finally to the last story arc, which is Shauna's. And for Shauna's story arc, I at first was actually pretty annoyed by it. I was like, oh, I hate when there's weird coincidences that kind of move the story along. And the fact that they just randomly got carjacked really bothered me. However, probably one of the funniest fucking things I've seen in months is that very first scene with her and Jeff, where it's like, it all started with the strawberry lube, The way that waitress fucking turns on a dime is just, I burst out laughing.
I kind of joked with my sister, and because she likes Melanie Linsky, and I turned to her at one point and I was like, wow, this episode, she's just cucking her husband real bad. And it's like, so come sit with me at the diner and let me tell you, step by step why I had the affair. And it's because I was just bored, and it wasn't because of you, it was because of me. I like the adventure. And then we get carjacked, so I'm going to, in front of you, like, de-arm the guy and like threaten to shoot the carjacker in the head.
Right.
Then he jumps in the way to like tell her not to shoot, which allows the guy to steal the van.
Right.
Then she goes and like rescues the van and like again threatens to kill somebody in an amazing scene where like she like makes this guy be like, look, you're shaking, you should put the gun down. And all of a sudden she's like, that guy is like almost pissing his pants like a few seconds later. Yep. And It ends with like him in the gym, like I'm a man, I swear. Like he might as well just have been crying like I'm a man while he's lifting weights. And he tries to go up to Kevin and acting all manly and tough. And even Kevin is like, dude, your wife like had like 1,000 text messages with this guy. She was totally fucking him. And Jeff's like, no, they got into a car accident, dick. I felt so bad for Jeff in this episode because like he really is this like kind of small town like loser husband. I feel like this is a thing that annoys me in movies and TV shows is they always make it like there's always this thing where whenever there's like an affair in a marriage, they always tend to make it like, oh, the man is having an affair on a woman because he's a fucking asshole. But whenever a woman is having an affair on a man in any like movie or TV show, it's because like their husband is just too much of like a regular guy and that's boring for them. And it's like, it's almost like accepted. It's almost like this socially accepted, like, oh, well, this guy didn't turn out to be as exciting as, you know, the woman wanted. So it's perfectly okay for her to like check out with this guy. Like there was a movie with basically that's like Diane Lane's entire filmography is like, my husband is boring, so I'm going to have an affair. Like she went through a stretch in like the late 90s, early 2000s where she made like 4 movies in a row where it was like, I love my husband, but oh my God, is that Viggo Mortensen? And like, there was, did you ever see the movie The Good Girl with Jennifer?
No.
So Jennifer Aniston, her husband was like John C. Reilly, and he was a perfectly nice guy, but he was like a schlubby guy. And she like ends up sleeping with Jake Gyllenhaal, and then it gets like very dark. It's always like, my husband is boring, so it's okay to have an affair. And that's like a trope that I don't like in movie. So I kind of didn't like the continuous King of Jeff.
Yes. I am so very glad that you brought that up because it's interesting. If I was having this review with Sherry, then I don't think the discussion would go this way at all. But it's a really, really interesting point that I think kind of ties in with the heart of the show, right? Because the whole idea, the whole inspiration for this show, and I've said this before, was that they were going to make a all-female cast of The Lord of the Flies, and people were saying that couldn't work. And so Ashley Lyle, the one who came up with the idea of the show, was like, okay, this would be cool, and you know, the women would be very vicious. Now, I think that Shauna, in general, is the example of, oh, you think that women can't be badasses? You think that women can't be vicious or scary? Well, look at this woman played by Melanie Lynskey, who's actually like, Melanie Lynskey is like perfect at seeming sort of meek and kind of weak and you know, but then she's also this scary fucking killer that talks about peeling flesh off of people and watching them die, right? And I think that is kind of the main focus of Shauna's story, and I think it's sort of the kind of like what the show is all about, you know. And so you talked about tropes that you don't like. It's interesting that what you were saying there, essentially the man doesn't win in either of those scenarios, right? Because if he's cheating on his wife, he's the asshole. And then if the wife's cheating on him, it's because he's a loser, right? Or that he's not cool. And I think that like for a show like Yellowjackets, like, okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I've heard a lot of people complain about in general, right? Is that male characters these days are kind of lame and female characters are awesome in a lot of the genre stuff that we watch, right? Whether it's horror, science fiction, comic book stuff, right? I think that with a show like Yellowjackets, right off the bat, you know that it's going to be female-led. There's no illusions of like oh, men are going to be cool or anything like that in it, because it's a whole female thing, right? So you're not even sitting there thinking like, oh, the men are lame. But I think it is worth pointing out that the men are kind of lame on this show, except for maybe that guy, Kevin, right?
But even he cheated on his wife with Nat, and then like Nat immediately like shrugs him off.
Mm.
And like really the only male character that's given any type of like, I don't even know the word for it, but the only male character that I feel is presented in I don't want to say positive way, but like Travis in 1996, where he's like the one of age guy who is along for the ride with these girls. He's obviously a love interest for Nat, but he also was a love interest for other characters. He's also of interest in other ways. There's like that, like we're gonna kill you and eat you episode from season 1. So there's a lot of stuff with like, and Travis was obviously like a character that was going through what they went through, which I think elevates him above a lot of the other male characters, because there's always this sense of, and this goes for pretty much any character, not just the male characters, but any character who is associated with the Yellowjackets but wasn't with them. There's always this idea of like, you don't know what we've been through. And I did love the moment in the preview for next week where Elijah Wood goes, "Why do I care if you're a Yellowjacket?" That was like 30 years ago.
Oh, yes. And Christina Ricci goes 25.
And Misty has that like look of like being like, "What do you mean you don't care?" And it was 25 years ago. Like, right. By like saying he doesn't care, it's almost this like taking back of like the power dynamic in a relationship. Like, oh, the thing that you think makes you special, I don't care about.
Yes.
And I hope I'm not coming across as like chauvinistic. I don't need strong male characters in my show. I just found
of course.
This whole episode, it almost became comical how much shit Jeff takes. When again, in season 1, she follows him thinking he's having an affair.
Right. He's the asshole there.
You can totally get, okay, she's just going to sleep with this random hot stranger because, hey, why not? My husband's doing it too. But when you find out he wasn't having an affair, and yeah, he had some like money issues and he got involved with the wrong people, he made some bad decisions, but he's still like a fairly, like the daughter loves him. Right. He's still like a fairly decent, supportive family man, husband, father, and he just routinely gets shit on. Like, and I think like that, it does play into a fact that like he is the father of that baby. The baby that is going to be born that we're talking about, he is the father of that baby. So maybe it is some like, 25 years of like residual resentment for putting her in that situation when she was there,
That's a really, really good point that he's the father of that baby.
Yeah, so who knows? I'm just like every Saturday morning, I'm excited for next week. Uh-oh. Did we lose Pete? Well,
okay, we're back. Hello? Are you there, Danny?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey. I'm trying to walk back into the house.
Here, you know what? Why don't we just kind of wrap it up, and then because we keep having technical difficulties. What do you call it? Just want to say that we're going to see what happens next week with the hatch, whatever the hell that's going to be. Could you recognize who was going into the hatch?
I didn't. And at all. So who knows? I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. I just saw that there was a hatch, and I got nervous that we were going into lost territory.
Yes. I was like, is that Javi that's climbing down there? Or is that one of the other girls? It looked kind of like one of the other girls. Sherry thought it was that girl that was foaming from the mouth in the coach's vision. I don't know. But it looked like it was definitely from the 1996 time, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I like how Danny's all quiet because he's like walking through his family's like vacation house that they're in.
My
It's like he's doing the
mother's
walk
up
of shame.
already. Yeah, I don't know. We have to wake up early anyway because we're doing like
Going
a
to
day
Tombstone.
trip to
Right.
Tombstone. So
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
probably be on my way soon anyway.
Gotcha. Well, then we could just wrap it up. And, I know we had some technical difficulties today, but I still think it was a really great discussion. And I think you brought up some really excellent points. So I'm glad I'm doing this with you.
Yeah, and to that guy who emailed or hit you up on Instagram, that's awesome. You know, I this is the type of show like a Lost. I know I keep saying ew Lost, but like Lost, what made Lost so great was that it was a water cooler show that like you'd get and you'd like spitfire all these ideas about what's happening. So if you guys, anybody watching, have any ideas, just leave them in the comments. Reach out to us on social media. Those are our handles. So yeah, it makes the show and the discussions more exciting.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you so much, guys. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We always have to say that. But Danny and I will be back here next Saturday to talk about episode 4 of Yellowjackets. And we're also continuing our march to Evil Dead Rise, which comes out April 20th. So we're going to be covering Maniac Cop. I think that's going to be later in the week, though. But we've covered Evil Dead 2013, we've covered Darkman, and we've covered Drag Me to Hell. So if you like any of those movies, this is a horror channel. Make sure you check those out too. All right, guys, we'll see y'all next time.